Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to join me on my stream tonight. For those who have been paying attention, I haven't been here for the last few scheduled stream sessions. That's because I've been away. I was away attending the MVP Summit in Redmond, Seattle. So that took out all of last week, all of the, where are we? All of the previous week. And then after that, it was just kind of getting back into the swing of things and yada, yada, yada. So this is the first session back. I have brought up behind me here, I've brought up the list of scheduled streams that I'm intending on doing. The first thing I want to point out is there's immediately going to be a break again, unfortunately, for those who are really want to see me talk about stuff. I know that there's some of you out there, maybe. But yeah, my kids are on holiday from school for a couple of weeks, so we're going away for a short break. And as a result, there'll be no stream this upcoming Friday, and there will be no stream the following Monday. But I should be back on normal schedule and cadence after that. The intended cadence is still going to be the same. I still intend on doing streams on a Monday evening at this time, and Friday lunchtime at just the start of my lunch hour, I'll do a short stream on whatever topic we want to talk about. Now, I clearly don't know how to do time zones properly. I got reminded by Maurice and Matthias when I tweeted the other day that I was out by, or I would be out by an hour based on the time zone offset away from, there's Matthias, look, and I know Maurice is in the chat room as well. So yeah, we're now on BST, which is GMT/UTC +1. So when I tweeted out the other day that I was going to be going on at 8 p.m. GMT, it caused a few problems. So I've tried to illustrate that better, and I'll continue to attempt to illustrate that better because time zones are hard, and they're going to get worse if the EU get their way, allowing the member states to decide whether individual countries are going to opt into daylight savings or not, but that's a topic for another day. So, why are we here to talk about today? Today, we are here to talk about Cake. So, let's just bring it up. So, Cake, as most of you all know, is one of the open source projects that I contribute to. So, Cake is a reasonably mature open source project. We've had we've had 97 releases. And those releases, each one of those releases has a fairly well documented process that we walk through every time that we want to release something for general consumption. Now, it's not something that we do lightly because it is a reasonably long process. We have automated as much as we feel comfortable automating at the minute. There are still some manual steps in there, and there's good reason for some of them. But with the advent of things like GitHub Actions, I can see us automating more of these steps as we get into them. Now, so what you'll see tonight is my attempt at walking through that entire release process from end to end, and we shall see how it goes. Now, this is very much a behind-the-scenes look. This is something that typically, at the minute, there's only one of 7 people. I'm one of 7 people that can do the entire release process. The release process does require some permission levels that not every contributor to the Cake project would be able to do. So things like pushing the Cake packages to NuGet, pushing the Cake package to chocolatey.org, those kind of things require permissions, and not any contributor can do those things. But it's certainly something that one of 7 people can do. And to that end, what we have, if I go back up to here and bring up Cake build organization, then one of the repositories that we have here is one called the processes repository. So this is where we collate the release processes that we currently have for the various components of Cake, because Cake itself is made up of lots of different components. It's made up of the cake.exe itself. There's the Cake tool. There's Cake VS Code add-in. There's the Cake VS add-in. There's a Cake add-in for Azure DevOps. There's lots of different parts to that. Hey, Justin, how's it going? Good to hear from you. So, Justin, I happily got to meet Justin in at the MVP Summit. So I got to chat to him in real life again. So I've met Justin now for the second time in real life. So it was good to catch up with him while we were there. So yeah, there's lots of different parts. So one of the first things that I sort of did when I joined the Cake team back in whatever it was, 2015, 2016, sometime in the past, one of the first things that I did was to get up to speed with the release process that was already in place. So Matthias and Patrick already had a release process, but it was in their heads. It was in their head because they had, at that point, they hadn't done that many releases. And because I'm kind of a process-driven person for certain things, I wanted to write it down. So the outcome of that, if we walk up to here, that we now have this thing called the Cake Release Issue Template. So what this is, again, this is fully in the open. Anyone can go and look at this. This is the entire release process that we would have to do for Cake to get it out the door. Now, as I said, there's a lot of steps in there because there are some moving parts. As soon as we update Cake itself, we have to update other parts and push them out as well to keep everything in sync. So what we've done is we have some Maurice's already picked up on it. I scrolled past it quickly thinking that no one would notice it. But the last step there is, go and get a drink. Now, we don't specify there whether that needs to be an alcoholic beverage or whether that needs to be a soft drink. You can make up your own mind. But the last step is go and have a drink, yes. So what we're doing here, it would be an iron brew for me, Manfred. You're absolutely correct. That would be my choice, my drink of choice at the end of this process. Now, what we're using here is one of the functions of the GitHub issue where we have a checklist. So we have a checklist for all the steps in there. Now, the reason that we do that is because if I start the release process and something happens, one of the kids gets ill or something happens and I need to walk away from it, the idea is that we can record where I am in the process so that one of the other team members could pick it up. So that's the idea. So this is the template. And what we do is when we start a new release, we create a new issue from that template. So if we go back up to the closed ones here, you will see that the release process was carried out for each of one of these releases using this template. And then from there, we can contribute to it if we need to. We can add comments on it. It's the central location for that the release is currently happening. So we're a way to attempt the 0.33 release of Cake. So I've created this issue from that template. And in preparation for this, I have done some of these steps already. There was no point in having you watch me go through those steps because it's literally just git cloning a bunch of repos and making sure they're all up to date. So we probably document to the extreme a little bit here, but we have brought on new team members recently. So when I say recently, within the last couple of years, and we want them to be able to hit the ground running. So we want to document as much as possible, so that if we hand them the release process, they have a reasonably good chance of being able to complete it successfully. So there are some, let's say, easy steps in here, but they're documented for that reason. So I've done all of these ones. So I opted to use the manual approach, which was to clone all of these things manually. So I'm just going to go through these. And I've got all of these things locally on my machine now, okay, ready to start the release process. The reason that there's lots of repositories there is because, as I mentioned, once Cake itself gets updated, then we also want to update things like the website, because the website is driven by Cake. We kind of we use Cake, the latest version of Cake, on all of the things that we build. kind of as a dog fooding our own thing, so that if something's broken, we know about that quite quickly. So we want to update the website with the latest version of Cake. The example repository that shows how you can use and build Cake will then be updated to use Cake, and so on and so on. So I've done all of those steps. There is an automated approach. So I think it was Patrick created this prereqs.ps1 file that just does all of those things automatically for you. I chose to do it the manual way. I guess I'm old school a little bit, but I could have used the automated approach. So the first thing, now before we actually get to the release process, we want to inform people that it's happening. So the reason that we do this is, well, we're good citizens and we want to announce things to people. But more than that, historically, there have been some, let's call them issues, when people using Cake haven't pinned their repository, pinned to a specific version of Cake, and in the you like it to be difficult. I'm not sure. Oh, that's maybe true, Kim. Old school, difficult. I think those two things go together. What we found is that historically is that when we have pushed out a new version of Cake, if that version has got any breaking changes and people haven't pinned to a specific version of Cake, they immediately see that thing happening. So we want to inform as much people as possible about the upcoming release. So what we have here is just some messages that we can send out. So the first one is to send it to the Cake Gitter room. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste this into the Gitter channel for everyone to see. So I'll just copy that. I've got Gitter over on this machine over here. So I'm just going to paste this in here. I should probably change some of the wording. So it's going to be 33, not 31. And I'm assuming that milestone is going to be different as well. So let's just check to make sure that. So like I said, this is a template. This is not specific to the one that's obviously getting built. So some things will have to be altered. So if I go in here, that's the old milestone. So if we bump to 55, that will be a different one. Okay, so the ordering obviously doesn't work the way I expected it to. So this is going to be 57. Okay, so it's 57 that we want, not 54. So yeah, Matthias is here in the chat room Matthias is the person who's gone through the release process most recently. So the idea being that if anything in the release process changes between a release, the template is updated. So obviously the last person to do the release is kind of responsible for keeping the template up to date, as up to date as possible. So let's change that. So let's just check the text here. We will soon start prepping for the 33 release, which is 57. So it's a friendly reminder to pin your Cake version. And I'm going to add a smiley face at the end of that because that's what I do. So I'm going to send that. So we've done that one. So that's Gitter told about that. And then we have to go into the Gitter room for Cake Contrib and inform them of the same thing. So I'm just going to copy the text from this one. And let's go to the Cake Contrib room. So if any of you are in that same, in some of these rooms, you shall see them coming through. So where's Cake Contrib? Cake Contrib is here. So if I do a paste here, I'm going to paste that in there. So that's gone in. So I think some of these tasks are, you could say they're mundane, they're boring, but it's all part of the overall release process that we're aiming for. So they are they're necessary, right? So this one is going to Slack. So the text changes slightly because we're using @channel rather than @all. So let's go into Slack. And there's a general channel in Cake Contrib. So if anyone is part of the Cake Contrib organization, they will have been invited to the Cake Contrib Slack. And we announce things in there for people who are part of that as well. So I'm going to go 57 and 3. Friendly reminder to pin your cake version. So happy smiley face. And I'm sending that to 37 people across 8 different time zones. Oh, Maurice is saying that there's a typo. I haven't sent it yet. Hold on. There is a typo. Friendly. Where's you seeing typo? People. Where's people? Oh, not in the message. Okay, sorry. I'm going to send that message to 37 people across 8 different time zones, and I have no qualms about that whatsoever. What you're referring to is this. Okay, so let's change this. What I just said was that as a good citizen, I would come in here and update anything in the template that was wrong. So let's go into here and say up here, you're saying that the word peoples, it does. It's got an extra O in it. Thank you very much. Let's update that. Okay, so I've sent that message into the Cake Contrib Slack, and then using the Cake Twitter account, tweet to people to let them know. So let's do that too. I'm going to grab this, copy, and I'm going to go over to TweetDeck where I have access to the Cake Build account, and I'm going to say we are starting our release for 033, and that was milestone 57. This is a friendly reminder that if you haven't pinned to a specific version of Cake, you should do it now, and then a link to the tutorial that says how to do that. So I'm going to tweet that just now, and then I will retweet that from my own account to let people know. So we've done that one, and retweet from the Cake Contrib account as well. So I can go in there and retweet that also from Cake Contrib. Okay. And as Matthias is correctly pointing out there, everyone who's currently in the chat room should also go and retweet that, and that will get even more coverage for this release that's away to happen. And feel free to tell people that it's happening live here as well. They can come and have a look at how well or how badly things are going. Okay, so with that done, that's kind of all of our communication done. Those are the main communication mechanisms that we have interaction with people actually using Cake. We have other interaction channels for letting people know about the final release, about when it's ready. We also post to things like Medium and Reddit and various other places. But those are the main touch points for anyone actually using Cake. And we want them to be informed about the potential for something changing. Okay. Okay, so with that done, we're up to GitHub issues prerequisites. So we'll explain a little bit what's going on here. Now, if anyone's seen our release notes, let's go to one that's got some more stuff in it. So the release notes that we have are formulated in a way that they're grouped into things like features and improvements and bugs and breaking changes and things like that. Okay. Now, the way that we do that is we use a tool called Git Release Manager. And what Git Release Manager does is it trawls through the issues that are associated with a milestone. So in this case, we have a milestone that is the 033 milestone. White check mark. Perfect. Hold on, let me have a look. What's being said in the chat room here? Everyone retweet. So Maurice has retweeted for us. That's good. And Matthias is saying we'll likely AutoKit this issue creation and then Slack Git or tweet in future. Started with blog post. Right. Okay. So what Matthias? I'm mentally mind switching between Twitter handles and people's names, and it's just taking me a second to warm up again. So what Matthias is saying there is what I alluded to earlier. Some of these steps are manual at the minute, but there's a lot of stuff that we can automate once we are happy with the automation process that we're gunning towards. So like I say, I think things like GitHub Actions are going to help us a lot in these regard. So we can we can start triggering things much more easier or easily once we have some of those actions in place, and we can save a lot of the grunt work that we're doing here. But like I say, in my opinion, it's still better to have all of these things documented, and then we can build the automation into that, because at least then at that point we know what we need to automate. So what I was talking about there is that when we are preparing or when we're working towards the next release of Cake, we always create a milestone, and all of the issues and pull requests that are going into that next milestone, they are always assigned to that milestone. So right now, for this release, we have 44 closed issues. So if we drill into that, we can see that they're all here. Now, what this part here is talking about is that the way that Git Release Manager works in terms of automatically creating that set of release notes for us is that it can only have one label associated with it. So it's a bit of a it's a touchy point on Git Release Manager, and there is an open issue on, I think there's actually an open PR about making it possible to have multiple labels assigned with an issue for generating the release notes. But at the minute, it is limited to having only one. And that one label also has to be one of the labels that are set up for including within the release notes. So those would be, if we go back over here and scroll up, and let's have a look at the code, and then look at we need to go to the Cake repository, which is here, and in the git release manager.yaml file, which is here, then these are the labels that we include within our release notes. Okay, so all of the issues in this milestone have to be assigned to at least one, or rather to one and only one of those labels. So this is just a check to make sure that has been adhered to. So we've got improvement, breaking change, documentation. They're all fine. Breaking change, improvements, bugs, improvements. Build, anything that is labeled a build won't actually appear within the release notes, because those are kind of internal build-related issues that don't impact the final release product. They're things that our own build process needed to be corrected. Improvement, feature, bug, improvement, feature, bug, yada, yada, yada. Documentation, improvement. Okay, so all of those look good. So they've assigned to one and only one of the known labels, so that's good. Make sure all issues associated with milestone are closed. Again, so Git Release Manager won't include an issue in the release notes if it's not closed. So we saw that there were 44 closed issues and 0 open, so we've done that one. And make sure that all issues only have one label assigned to them, which is that. Good, okay. And I'm getting check marks in the chat room, so that's good. Now, when doing a release, so the other thing I wanted to mention here is that there is the concept of both a release and a hotfix. So the Cake repository on GitHub adheres to the Git flow branching strategy. Maurice is maybe picking up on the fact that DevLead hasn't retweeted that tweet. So the Cake repository on GitHub follows the Git flow branching strategy. So we have the concept of a develop branch, and as a result of that, we can have both a release where we're releasing a minor or a major release, or we have the concept of a hotfix, which means we are doing an immediate bug fix directly from our master, or what is our master branch. So the instructions here kind of split depending on whether you are doing, or potentially split based on whether you're doing a release or whether you're doing a hotfix. So that's why you'll see mention of both release and the hotfixes in there. So for what we're doing just now, we're doing a release, which means we're going to follow that path. So anytime that there's mention of a hotfix, we'll mention that slightly differently. Okay. So if I go over to here and I go up a couple of levels and we go into the Cake repository. So we're in Cake now, and I am on the I'm going to go into the develop branch. I'm going to check out the develop branch. Okay. So what we're kind of being told to do here. So what I'll probably do is I'll encourage you, if you haven't already, to have this open on your own screen, because I don't really want to flip between them in this what I'm recording and what I'm streaming. So I have it open on my other machine over here. So I'll follow along on my machine. I'll probably just keep what I'm working on in the stream, in the video. Okay, so if there's anything you want to see, let me know. But otherwise, I'll focus on what I'm doing as opposed to the process that I'm following. Okay. So when do you release, we want to move to a release branch. So I'm on the develop branch, so I want to check out a new branch, git checkout release, and that's going to be the 0.33.0 release, and that's going to come from the develop branch. So I'm going to check out a new branch, and let's just check that that's clearly not going to work. So I'm on that release 0.3.0 branch. So I've done that one. Okay. Oh, that's a very good idea. Thank you very much, Matthias, for providing that link. That's a great idea. The release notes here mention, interesting. I wasn't necessarily expecting to have to do that. I don't even think we have a release notes.md in our repository. Well, we do still have a release notes.md. Why do we still have a release notes.md? I thought we got rid of that. Okay. Update release notes.md to include the next version number as a placeholder. So this is one of the things that I thought we'd automated out, but clearly that's not the case. Personally, I like to have one source of truth with regard to release notes, and my preference is to have that source of truth be the actual GitHub release itself. So if I go back up to here and I look at these releases, then these release notes are the source of truth. But what Matthias is pointing out to me, and this makes sense now that he says it, is that the NuGet package that we publish still pulls its release notes from that release notes.md. So that's one of the things that definitely have to automate out at some point. Okay, so that makes more sense. Okay, so in this repository, we will have a release notes.md, which is going to be here. So let's get this done. So we've got new in 0.33.0, or what does it say to do? Update release notes to include the next version number as a placeholder. Save the file. It's on. Oh, really? Is that the game we're playing with this? Sure. Let's say it is my job to do that. 2019. Okay, that's really confusing because that is the 1st of April, but it's not the 1st of April. It's the 4th of January, I think. So I'm going to do the exact same numbers in the exact different order. Why are all the dates the same? Oh, hold on. They're not. It's that is the 1st of January, and both releases happened on the same day because we realized that there was a issue. Hotfix released the same day. It was completely confusing though, Maurice. It took me a second to figure out what was going on there. So we're updating the release notes.md, which we did, and then it is asking us in the release process to create the release notes on GitHub. So right now, to prove that we are not faking anything here, if we go to the releases on the Cake GitHub repository, there's currently 0.32.1 is the last set of release notes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a build, and I'm going to run build.ps1 with the target of release notes. And what that's going to do is it's going to run that target, which is to run Git Release Manager, and it's going to use the asserted version number that we get from Git version, which should currently be asserting the fact that this is now the 0.33. The intended release is the 0.33 release. So let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. So because it's the first time that I've run this Cake build on this machine, it's going to have to download a few things. That's obviously downloading the .NET SDK, so that's going to take a little bit. So this is probably a good opportunity to ask any questions while we're waiting on that. Anyone got any questions about the Cake release process so far and why we do things in a certain way? And if not, then I will try and think of something to talk about in the interim. Because I hadn't thought... Alright, I did know that this was going to take a while, but I didn't think to run the build before starting the stream. So, anyone know how long it takes to download? Oh, that's not, okay, it's downloaded. It's not too bad. Let's just have a quick look. Installation finished. So that's the .NET. That's the .NET SDK installed. So that's the local version. And now what it's doing is installing the cake.tool. So in the in a reasonably new feature of Cake was that we released it as a .NET global tool. You can install that with just the .NET tool command now. So again, in terms of dog fooding, Cake builds itself with the Cake tool. So it's downloading and installing that locally into the machine. What you're seeing there is Git version running on the local repository to find out what the asserted version number is. And we saw there that the asserted version number is 0.33 beta. And that is beta because I'm now on the release branch. That's a convention of how Git version itself works. So what that's done is it's used then the semantic release version of that, which is just 0.33, to then attempt to find a milestone with the same version number on GitHub. And if it finds that, it then runs through each of those issues to generate a set of release notes. So if we jump back over here and hit refresh, we should now have a draft set of release notes for 0.33.0 with all of those things in it. Now, this release does have some breaking changes in it. So that's kind of why we mention on Gitter, on Twitter, on all of those communication channels that there is the potential for things to break. Now, these breaking changes have been identified as potentially breaking changes. They're, in the strictest sense of the word breaking changes, there are changes to the parts of the Cake API, but in theory, they shouldn't impact on anyone because they are reasonably lower down in the stack, and it's really only potentially module authors that might be impacted by this. So it shouldn't break any add-ins, but again, in the strictest sense of the word, they are a breaking change. So we mention them up front in the release notes to say what they are. So we've got a bunch of features, we've got a bunch of bugs, we've got some improvements, lots of improvements, and then some documentation. So to me, those release notes look good. So I'm going to go ahead and tick a box to say that we've done that. And then we want to update the release notes to MD with the generated content. Okay, so what that's talking about is it wants me to take the contents of this, and it wants me to put it into the release notes.md. So let's go ahead and grab that. And the test is saying take the HTML. Hold on. I'm learning something new here. That's not how I do it. Let's do this then. Let's take the HTML. Copy, copy, copy. Absolutely, Kim. That's one of the things that there's a little OCD thing going on here that the export doesn't quite have the same output as what we've got here. So that's where we're going to go, but we haven't done that yet, mainly because things like this, the formatting isn't exactly the same. But that's something that we're looking at. Yes, absolutely. So the format is literally just that. Now, that's for historical reasons as well, because historically, NuGet.org didn't handle Markdown in the release notes section of the website. But that's no longer true anymore. It does handle that now. So we could, in theory, change that to be slightly cleaner on the website going forward. Now, how that will fit with OCD in the release notes, we might have to go back and change all the release notes so that they're the same. But at the minute, we adhere to the same format and we do it that way. Do the thing. So is that something else that's now on my to-do list? Is it, Tess? Is that being left squarely in my hands? Sounds like it is. I've got lots of work to do, seemingly. Oh, hold on. So that was the documentation one. So we can take that one out. So this one is a heading. So let's take that out. Because we don't include those. It would be, Maurice, but it would mean then that I don't get to talk to you about things. So yeah, I'm enjoying my little chat here, and it's quite therapeutic doing this over and over again. Oh, that was so I'm just going to stick with it. There's something about this that's quite nice. I'm almost finished as well. So let's just run with it. Okay. Breaking changes. So we've done those. So that's the format. That looks good to me. Yada yada yada. Save. Update the release notes to end with generated content, making sure to keep the formatting the same. Done that. Build everything to make sure that it still builds. So the build that we did before was just... I saw that too, Justin, but I'm not liking it. And I understand now why Matthias did not want to come on the stream with me today, because he's just assigning everything to me. But I'm on to him. I know exactly what he's doing. So the build that I did previously was a specific target of release notes, so obviously it didn't build everything. So what the process is telling us to do now is to do a full build. So this will then initiate the default target, which is to build everything. And this is more of just a sanity check to make sure that everything is working as expected. Now, at this point, it shouldn't break, because there have been multiple builds of this, and all the builds have been succeeded. So we test that thoroughly on multiple different CI systems. So I'm reasonably confident that this local build should work in the same way that all the CI builds work, but we do it anyway, just as a sanity check. One thing I should mention as well is that when we were at the MVP Summit, it was a unique experience in the sense that all 7 members of the Cake team were in the same place at the same time. So we were lucky enough to be able to sit down around a table and get through quite a few of the open PRs that have been sitting open for a while, because we were able to talk through them, decide our approach on them, and then get them merged in. Now, some of them did get closed because oh, that doesn't look good. Oh, I might not have one of the come back to that. Yeah, that should have. We'll come back to that text in a minute. So yeah, what I was saying was we were able to sit down in the same around the same table. Talk through some PRs, get them merged in. Unfortunately, we did have to close some of them based on the discussions that we had, but a lot of them did get merged in. So we got it down from something like 24 open PRs down to, I think, 6. So it was a really good meeting in that sense, ready to go. Yeah, I seem to be missing, but okay, so let's just catch up with what people are talking about in the chat rooms. So Maurice is saying Control A assign get 13. No, let's not do that. Should probably assign to Patrick, Martin, Pascal, or Dave, who aren't here. I think that's a much better idea, Matthias. Let's definitely go with that. So the question is, do I want to... Let's just do it. Choco install dot 4.6.1. Let's just do that. What I was going to suggest is, am I just going to do it anyway without doing... It is installed. So no. The plot thickens. So the question is, should I just go ahead and do the release having not built it locally? I'm reasonably confident that that will work, but it also violates the release process. So what to do? What to do? NetFX 461, is there a distinction? Okay. So what we've got here, NetFX. No, are you talking about the package name for NetFX 461? I'm confused on what you're suggesting. Let's just get this chocoinstall.net version detector. Hey, Baron of Cheese. Why have you changed your name, Tomas? Why the change from Cheese Baron to Baron of Cheese, or was it already taken? Oh, I've got a broken version of Chocolatey. Oh, it's all going wrong now. Hold on. Choco upgrade. Chocolatey. Let me just fix my environment while I'm talking to you all here. Someone that is shocking, Tomas. I think what you need to do is a cease and desist order on that person and get that username back. Is what needs to happen there. Okay, so I'm getting lots of suggestions here. Cheese Baron, web dev pack. No, I understand that, but I was getting confused by your package name, Kim. But it looks like the full one is 461 dev pack. Let me check that one. So that should be Chocolatey updated. So net 461 dev pack. Copy a clipboard. Paste. Mind the dash. Yeah, I think that's what I was missing. So let's maybe try this then, shall we? Because I would like to have a working build before I do the release process. So let's just do this live. Oh, interesting. So there's a question on Twitter, which is, let me just bring this up. There's a question on Twitter, which is, where did it go? When do you plan to release 1.0.0? And what do you miss and need help for? I don't. So that was from Boyan. I'm going to get his name. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name. I am terrible with names. But let's just bring it up here. Twitter.com/cakebuildnet. It looks like Matthias has already replied as well, so that might help. I might find my answer. Tweets and replies. Oh, go away. What? I have to be signed in to look at tweets and replies? What? That's just ridiculous. So the question was from Boyan. What do you miss and need help for with regard to the 1.0 release of Cake? So as Matthias is pointing out, we do have a milestone for the 1.0 release of Cake. Fact is, Cake has probably been at a point that it could have been released for a while now. But there was a few things that we wanted to get in. One of the big things that's in the works before we get to the 1.0 release is the rewriting of the argument parsing that's done by Cake. So that's something to think about. Yeah, this is not going well. I'm gonna wing it. So this, I'm going to do the release without having done the full build locally, and I think I'm okay with that. I'm going to do it. Can I get a thumbs up from Matthias? Is there anybody else in the chat room that is part of the team? No, Matthias, it's you and me. I'm gonna do it. Is that okay? Can I get a thumbs up? Go on, give me a thumbs up. Do it. Yeah, indeed. Oh, Murray says no. You could always push release branch. I could do that, but then that would kick in all the CI builds. Oh, you're making me feel bad now. The chat room is not helping me at all. Making me feel bad. Okay, let's do that then. Let's do what Matthias suggested, because it's probably the most git push upstream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the release branch, which will then kick in the CI builds. This chat room is making me feel terrible about these things. Oh dear. So let's go to ci.appbear.com and see some of these builds happening. Appbear.com. And let's log in with GitHub. And we should then be able to see some builds for Cake, which are here. And here's the release build here. So if this build works, chat room, I'm going to proceed with the release. If it doesn't, then since you own it all now, doesn't that mean you can redefine the I like your thinking, Justin. Since you own it all now, doesn't that mean you can redefine the process as well? I can definitely do that. But I think I was erring on the side of having the build happen at least once. So I think I'm glad the spectre on my shoulder was telling me to do the build. So if this build works, we shall proceed with... No, I know you might be kidding, but you saw me edit the process earlier, so I have full control for the next person, so I can make them do it. But anyway, in all seriousness, if this one works, then we can proceed with the release. So, what was I saying earlier? I should probably get my this development environment that I have here up to the point of having everything that's needed, because there is, although the Cake build for Cake downloads and installs a bunch of things, there are still sort of some assumed prerequisites, and they're listed on the Cake website itself. So there must be something missing on this machine that I haven't quite got for Cake. Oh, beautiful. So Maurice is saying he is currently a way to take ownership of this Microsoft.NET Framework 4.6.1 developer pack to figure out why it's not building and not installing. So we should see within a few minutes that Maurice is going to be the owner, co-maintainer of this package, and he will be able to get that build running and installing correctly. So thank you to Maurice there in the chat room. So where did CI go? Okay, so it's got to the build step, so I think this was the step that failed locally, so we'll be in good shape if this one goes through, and then we can continue with the process after that. So after that, it is to commit the changes to the release notes and the solution. Oh, interesting. Did we get to that point? I think we would have. So over here, so the build that I did run locally did update so the only file that I've changed manually was the release notes.md, but the other change that's happened is to the solution info.cs. So it has that's how we share the version number across all the projects in the Cake solution. So that part worked correctly. Even though the build didn't complete, it did modify the solution info.cs. So those two files do need to get changed then. Checked it as part of the release process as well. So that part did work. So that is the next part of the release process that we'll get to once this build finishes. So where are we getting to now? To do some tests. So the build, so it's already gotten further than it did locally. So the build has completed, and now it's running the unit tests on the repository. So, and now it's creating the NuGet packages, so I'm fairly certain at this point that the build is going to succeed. If it doesn't succeed, it is a packaging issue. But let's just wait for it to finish off. Creating Chocolatey packages, uploading AppVeyor artifacts. So it's uploading the zip files, it'll be uploading nutkegs, and so on. So this is looking promising. Getting there. Lots of artifacts. It depends on KB355. It will take a while to install. So what Maurice is referring to there in the chat room is in terms of testing a Chocolatey package that has a dependency on that particular knowledge base article, that's known to take at least 10 minutes to install. So we'll let Maurice off if he isn't able to get it done in the next short while. So okay, so it's just waiting to process the build's finished, but it's waiting to process the uploading of the artifacts, I think, and the tools cache. Oh, come on, go green. I've said I won't do anything until it goes green, and now it's just going to sit and be yellow for a little bit, isn't it? I should have pointed out, by the way, that we also have Twitfool in the chat room, who I think I'm right in saying is Gitfool, who has been doing a series of changes and improvements in this release of Cake. So our thanks go to him for his work that he's been doing. So if the build had failed, then we would have known who was responsible. We have a no blame culture here in Cake. We would never point the finger at anyone at all, apart from on this stream. So it's gone green. Okay, so build everything, make sure it works. So we've done that. So now we need to commit the changes that have been made to those two files I spoke about. So let's go ahead and go into here, and I'm going to use a commit message like this: updated version number and release notes. So in release notes, as a sanity check, all I've done is added those release notes. The solution info is the version number has bumped from 321 to 33, and the SHA has changed. So let's go ahead and commit that, which I've done. At this point, if you want to share the work, then push the release to GitHub, which we've actually done that already. Assuming everything goes okay, switch to the main branch. So at this point, we are going to commit those changes. So if I do git branch again here, then we're on that release branch. So I need to check out the main branch, which is there. So I have checked that out, and that worked correctly, I believe. Sanity check. We're on the main branch. Merge the release branch into the main branch with a NoFF. So we're going to go git merge release. No, I'm not going to do that yet. Git merge NoFF release. Oh, I don't have. I'm trying to hit tab here, but it's not working because I don't have PoshGit installed. So that's why it's not working the way I want it to. So I'm going to have to type it out. So git merge NoFF release 0330. Okay, so the NoFS is just so it doesn't do a fast forward merge at this point. So let's just go ahead and do that. Whoa, lots of stuff in there, lots of good stuff in there. And as a sanity check, let's just see what that looks like. So let's just open up Git extensions for this repository so we can see what it looks like. So we've taken the release 030 branch, which was taken from the current develop branch, and we're going to merge that into the main branch, which looks good to me. So we've just done that. So merge the release branch into the main branch, and it's wanting me to build everything again. Again, I can't do that, but we will be pushing this branch to the main, to the upstream, so it will build there. So I'm going to say that I built it locally, and I'm going to push the main branch. So I'm going to do a git push upstream of the main branch, and I'm getting the thumbs up from Matthias this time, so I'm definitely going to do it. So I'm going to push that to there, and we will go back to our CI builds. So over here now, we should have a new build starting off, which is the one that we just... There we go, that's the main branch now. And what you can't see is that then my Discord channel and my Slack channel is currently going nuts because we have some automated notifications that happen. So at this point, all of the Cake team are being notified that things are happening on the repository. Won't release tag if it doesn't build. Correct. So what Matthias is saying is there, or what Matthias is hinting at in the chat room, is that this build, although we have committed into what is the master branch and we've pushed this to GitHub, it's not actually going to do a release. We kind of have a two-step process for that. The two-step process is literally make sure that it builds correctly, and then at that point we'll actually then do the release. And that's where we finalize the release notes and tag the repository. And at that point, that's what then causes the actual release of packages to NuGet and to Chocolatey and all those things. So the step that I'm currently on is basically making sure that all the CI builds pass. So AppVeyor is, although we have multiple CI systems, so if I go over to here and look at the home page or the README, you'll see here that we build pretty much everywhere, right? But AppVeyor is still used as our deployment CI system. And by that I mean that the build needs to succeed on AppVeyor in order for the actual publishing to happen. We build on Azure DevOps on all of the platforms, but AppVeyor at the minute is still our main deployment pipeline. So if it doesn't work on AppVeyor, then the release won't happen. But we like to verify that it builds on the other CI systems as well prior to doing the release. So the way that we do that is in our Slack channel. We have channels, dedicated channels for each of the CI systems that we're interested in, and we get notifications in there that say that build passed or the build failed. So I'm currently kind of monitoring over here what's going on. So I'm getting notifications from AppVeyor to say that the last build was succeeded, and I'm going to watch and see that notifications come through from other places as well to ensure that those builds work as expected. A question from Matthias is, should we now also do integration tests on Mac and Win? Possibly. So I'm writing saying just now, currently, though, well, I'm looking at it actually. Currently, let's talk about that a little bit. You're talking about just adding you're talking about adding the badges here into the integration test because we're now running integration tests on Azure DevOps as well. Is that what you're saying? Should we? No. So yep, to which part? So you're saying that we do currently do the integration test on Azure DevOps as well as on AppVeyor and Bitrise. So we should add badges. Yes? Yep. I'm waiting for another yep. Or yes. Or affirmative. Yep. For Mac, Win, and Ubuntu. So for Mac, Win, and Ubuntu. Okay. So yes, we should definitely do that. We should add the integration. We should add some badges in there for that. That's something that you can do, Matthias. You can add those into there. I'll leave that for you to do. So again, that build is getting to the point that it's finishing. So perfect. And if that one works, then we're at a point that we can actually do the release, and that's where we actually start sending out packages to various places. So after the release. So if this build succeeds, then I am going to, and based on the fact that the previous builds for Azure pipelines succeeded, and everything else is green across the board, looking at them just now, I'm going to hit the go button. And I'm going to actually release Cake next. Oh, don't. So Kim, that's a leading question. And you're kind of lucky the fact that Alistair's not on the chat here, because he would eat you alive with that sort of question, because he's our resident Linux guru. I'm not. Okay, so that succeeded. Okay. And I'm getting notifications from Azure DevOps to say that the build was successful as well on Debian Stretch, on Fedora 28, and on Mac OS. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to publish this now, I think. So assuming that everything went okay, go to the draft release in GitHub and press edit. So let's go ahead and do that. So what this is referring to is this release up here. So no, where are we? Let's go up here. Issues. No, not issues. Up here in the releases. Hold on, there's things in. Oh, sorry, there's a question there from Megacamp. Do you guys assign Semver versions to the CI builds as well? Yes, that happens. So what Matthias is pointing out there is that happens automatically by Git version. So if we go back to, if we go back up here and look at the history, it's probably easier to see it there. So one of the functions of Git version is to automatically update the build number of the CI system that it's running on as well. So in this scenario, it has used in AppVera, it either uses a service message type thing or the PowerShell API to set the version number. So every time Git version searches what the version number is for the build, it will update the CI build as well. So you'll see here that it's narrowing down in scope. So back here, this alpha build was from build and develop branch. This was specifically from a pull request branch, and then it started to narrow down as we went through the that should have been that's interesting. That one should have been a beta build. Or was that the merge? Regardless, I'll have to look into that one. But yes, it searched the full semantic version into the build number of the CI system. So again, you'll see it narrowing down in scope here as we actually get to the release build. So this is as close to the release build as you can get before we actually tag it. When we tag it, it should be 0330, I think, with little or else added there. So what the next step is referring to is me doing this. So if I go into edit here on this release in GitHub, then what it wants me to do is push this green button here, which is to publish the release. That will then kick off another build on AppVera, but it'll also have a tag assigned to the repository, which then makes the build go down a slightly different path. And that slightly different path is to have additional publishing steps at the end of it. So if we go back to that CI build that we saw here, then if we look at what it did, you'll see that it skipped all of these things at the bottom here. It skipped the NuGet publish, it skipped the NuGet publish, it skipped the Chocolatey Homebrew and all those things. It skipped all of those things because it knew it wasn't on a tagged build. But this time around, when I click this button, it will be a tagged build, so those steps will be executed. So let's go ahead and do that now. That's what I thought, but I thought I saw a generic build number. So you will. So what it's referring to there is, and it's actually what Matthias has said in the chat room, is when the build starts. So we'll probably see it happening here. If we go up to here on the current build, then right just now, that's just got a generic @var build number. But once the build starts and Git version asserts the version number, it then updates it as it's going through. Exactly that, yes. The other question there from Maurice is, do you need to keep the pre-release checkbox checked? I've fluctuated back and forth on that one. So what you're referring to there is, if we go back to this again, what Maurice is asking about is this here is a pre-release. The reason that we keep that checked at the minute is it moves this one, or it appends this additional information onto it being a pre-release. So yes, in the grand scheme of things, this is a pre-release in the sense that it's not in a 1.0 release because it's pre that. But I fluctuate on that because a pre-release now, based on the wording that is kind of changing, if we were to do beta releases, then it would be a pre-release tag for a beta. So yeah, it depends. Okay, so that build's working, and now if we go back to the top here, we'll see the difference in the history. So these two builds are essentially the same. The one difference now is that this now has a tag associated with it. So this has got the 0330 tag, and you'll see that the build number is slightly different. It no longer has the plus the build metadata. It's just got the additional build information onto what @var build number it was. So that's why that's still being included in there. But the actual semantic version number no longer has the build metadata associated with it. So this is the release that's going to go out the door. So if we start looking at NuGet.org and we have a look at what's got Cake in it. So over here, Cake at the minute has just got 0321. So what we should see is it's starting to we should start seeing packages appearing as part of this release process. And yes, each app bit, so every time you run a build on @var, it increments its own build counter by 1, and that's what you're seeing there. That final number there is the @var build number, and that gets appended into the CI build number. Okay, so let's have a look at see where we're getting to. So it's going to be this is the only slight problem with the process that we've got here, and it has been pointed out a couple of times, is that we're essentially doing that build again when we don't need to. The deployable artifacts from the previous build should really be used in this final tag build, and that's one of the things that I'd like to tidy up at some point in this build process, so it doesn't have to do that final build again. It just takes the deployable artifacts from the previous build and actually sends them out the door. What it's doing here is superfluous. It doesn't need to happen. So again, it's one of the improvements that I would like to make to the overall build process at some point. Because we're signing only... Oh, interesting. So the artifacts are not exactly... But it could be. We could sign on any build on the master branch. It would be a way to get around that. So the deployable artifacts are then the actual deployable artifacts. So this is doing an additional step. What Matthias is saying in the chat room is that this step didn't happen in the previous build. But I think it could. Okay, so we're getting close to the final release at this point, and we're 70 minutes in. A lot of that is me just been talking, but we're getting somewhere. We're probably not going to get the process completely finished tonight, but the artifacts will ship. It'll just be some of the administrivia stuff that needs to happen to get that finished off. So there we go. So it's signing's finished, it's uploading the artifacts, and then at that point it should start publishing packages in my Slack channel or channels. should start going nuts again. Because we also get notifications when NuGet packages get published. So it's uploading artifacts. Let's see where it gets to. Any questions from anyone on what we've done so far? Now would be a good time to field any questions that are out there. So it's publishing those things to NuGet. So that's our private NuGet feed. Well, not private NuGet, but it's segregated NuGet feeds on NuGet. That's where all of our development or develop branch builds go, but we also push the final artifacts there as well. Where do you store the private key to do the signing? I'm going to let Matthias answer that in the chat room, and then I can elaborate that on that megacamp. The reason that I am slippery shouldering that one is because he set it up, and I don't want to say anything wrong, so I will take a lead from him on exactly how it's set up. I know we're using the signing service that Oren Novotny set up as part of our process, but I don't know the ins and outs of exactly how it's set up. Okay, so what we'll see here now is publish NuGet. So that's all the NuGet packages getting pushed. So what I should have shown before is if I go up here and look at cake build, then there's actually multiple NuGet packages that get pushed on each release. It's not just one package. There's cake core, there's cake common, cake core CLR, cake tool. So all of those will have been pushed as a result of this build. So what we should see, and then if we go back, then it pushed to NuGet, it published the Chocolatey. So we can check to see if that's gone through. Publish the Homebrew. We don't, as part of the build process, we don't actually push the Homebrew, but we have all the component parts that we would need to do the push to Homebrew, but that's one of the tasks for automation that we've got left as well. We've published the GitHub release, and then we finalize. So if we go back to that release that I hit the green button on before, so before I hit refresh here, you'll see that the only assets here are essentially the source code. If I refresh this now, we should see some additional assets, which are the zip files of everything that we've just submitted effectively. So it is all of the things that have been released are in those zip files. So yeah, what Matthias is saying in answer to Megacamp's question was actually key isn't stored in the build environment, it's stored in Azure Key Vault. So we only have an API key to sign service, which does all the heavy lifting. And the API key is stored in an environment variable or encrypted in a config file. So that's a question from Megacamp. It's a secret as part of our build. So that would be an environment variable, Matthias? Essentially an encrypted environment variable? Yes, okay. So that's the release process completed. So this will trigger another build with a tag, which we've done. And it's telling me that I need to record that homebrew. So what I need to finalize to publish the last part of the release, I need to remember what this thing here was. So these are the things I'm going to use to push a homebrew package with the latest version of Cake in it. So then what it's telling me is I need to, so I've taken a note of that, switch to the develop branch. So this final step I don't think we actually need, but let's do it. Oh no, we will need it, that's a lie. Maurice is saying that it's pushed it to Chocolatey, so we can bring that up so we can see it. So if we go up here and look at cake.portable, so in here we should see that this is the last version, but if we go down to the releases section or the version section, come on Chocolatey, if we go down to the version section here, then there is a 033 which is now in the moderation queue. So NuGet, both NuGet and Chocolatey now have the concept of kind of a gate before the submission process actually completes. So behind the scenes. It's not visible in NuGet without being signed in to say that there's a version in the process of being validated. You can see it on Chocolatey, but it says it's pending automated review. I would have to be signed into NuGet to see that in there, which I'm not. But those packages have been pushed. I've gotten multiple emails in saying that I'm getting other notifications in now to say that maybe it has just happened. There we go. So it is there. It's got all the release notes, and now it's just waiting for it to be indexed. So you won't be able to restore that package yet. It has to go through its indexing cycle. But the packages are there. It's all out there. You may actually hear all the emails going off in my machine just now, which is NuGet telling me that all those 6 or 7 packages have been published, which is good news. Where did I get to? I was checking out the develop branch. So git check out the develop branch, and what I want to do is I want to merge that release branch into the develop branch, because what we did was we did make changes on that release branch, which was to update the solutioninfo.cs and the release notes. So we need to merge those into the develop branch. So I need to take what's on the 0.33.0 and merge it into there, which we did there. Resolve any merge conflicts, which there were none. And then what it wants me to do is it wants me to bump the cake tool version in build.config. So in a build.config file, we do look. So this is a config file that's used to control what version of the cake.tool is restored as part of the build. So that will be dependent on this package indexing being completed. So I might not push this just yet, because it's still being indexed, because that would force the build to fail. But let's go ahead and get this here. Get some build commit message. So copy that. Updated cake.tool to that. There. Okay. So with that done, I can go ahead and delete the release branch that I've got, because we don't. Whoa. Git branch -d release 0.33.0. Don't need that anymore. So that's me deleted the local branch. And if I go up to here on the cake repository, I'm going to close off some of these. Too many tabs open for what I'm trying to do. I'll delete the release branch that we pushed up to here, because we don't need that anymore. So I don't need that one. So I'll just go ahead and delete that up here too, because we don't need that one. Okay. And Matthias in the chat room is saying that cake.tool is now available. It still says it's being indexed. Have you attempted to resolve it locally? Did it work? If I get a yip, I'll push it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so it's there. So I committed that change. I did. So we can push that develop branch as well then. So if we go back to the command line and do a git push upstream, that will kick off a CI build using the new version of Cake. So again, that's Cake building Cake with itself with the latest bits, and we'll get some immediate feedback on there if that is for some reason broken. So if we go up to the top here, so it's appearing as not already indexed for you as well, Tomas. Oh, there we go. Okay, must have been a caching thing. So it's now there. Perfect. Thank you very much. So that new build will build an app there with cake.tool. That's ready to go. So I've done that, and then delete the local branch. I did that, and I did that one. Okay, perfect. So that's the release. The first part of the release completed. And then what I'm being told to do is to make sure that all of the NuGet packages are completed. Oh, I'm going to close that off. So there's the cake package. It's got 33, which is good. Let's just go through them all. Cake.core is at 0.33, which is good. Cake.core CLR is 33. So these are all the NuGet packages that were created as part of that release. Common is at 33. Let's just see them all up there. Cake.testing is at 33. Cake.NuGet is 33. And then we've already seen this one, but let's bring it up anyway. So Cake.tool is released at 33 as well. The only one that's not now currently available, technically, is the portable package, because it goes through on an automated installation, and there's currently a queue of packages on chocolatey.org that I know for a fact. So that's not going to be ready in the time of this stream, but it will be at some point. So we've done all of those. So what we want to do now is want to create the Homebrew package and push the Homebrew package to have the 0.33 as well. So in order for that, I'm going to need to go back to this build, and I'm going to need to grab this part. So this is the piece that I'm interested in. So to do that, I'm going to close off this one, and I'm going to go to the Homebrew repository. So I've already got a clone and a fork and a clone of the Homebrew core repository, and that's the one that I'm going to edit to make that change. So I move to the Homebrew repository, and I'm going to create a branch called git checkout -b cake 0.33.0 cake hyphen, and I'm going to take that from the master branch, and I'm going to open up code. And if anyone's done any work on Homebrew, then everything's driven by this formula folder. So if I go in here and look for formula/cake, then we should have a cake.rb file. So this is the cake's formula file, and the SHA that I'm interested in is the one that was in that log. So that's the SHA that I need. So that's going to replace this SHA. So I opened the formula, I updated line 4 with this one, 0.30, installed after one reboot. Interesting. So I wonder, it could be, so this is a throwback in the chat room from Maurice to earlier when I tried to install that package. It could be that my machine is my machine's currently in a pending reboot, so I wonder if that's what was causing it not to install correctly. So maybe that's all it was. So in order for Homebrew to work, it needs that zip file that we published as part of our GitHub release. So I'm going to grab that URL just to test out to make sure that I've input it correctly. So that is there, and I'm getting that download there. So that's the right URL. Why still the dependency on Mono on Mac OS? Because this isn't the cake tool. Oh no, hold on. You're referring to this. Oh, you're referring to line 9. Depends on Mono. You see, it does. We don't rely on the no. So what Matthias said is what I was trying to formulate in my head. So, and what I was going through in my head is the monoscripting that we used to take a direct dependency on. So Cake is now centralized on Roslyn for the scripting, so we don't need Mono for that. But in terms of running cake.exe, which is what we are bundling within the Cake formula for Homebrew, that still requires Mono to run it. if you want to use the cake.tool, we don't have a homebrew package for the cake.tool because, well, you can just run .NET tool install and do it that way. Could the homebrew formula use cake.core CLR? I'm going to leave you two to thrash that one out. I'm going to just make the change to this PR. So I've proven that the download URL that I provided works. That's the SHA. So we calculated the SHA as part of the build that we ran. So that's the SHA that was generated for the zip file that got uploaded to GitHub. So that closes the loop on that one. So I've updated line 4 to be the URL. I've updated the SHA. And I am then going to commit. Right. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to look at the changes to make sure that those are what we want. So that's the only two things that I've changed. And then the commit message needs to be in a specific format, and that's that feedback was directly from the homebrew developers or the homebrew maintainers. So the commit message is simply going to be cake and then the version number. And so I'm going to go ahead and commit that. And I'm going to say yes. And then I'm going to push that to git push origin, which is my fork. And then from there, I can. Oh, interesting. Git -v. Oh yeah, sorry, because of the branch. So I need to set that to be there. And then from there, I would be able to open up a pull request to the homebrew repository. So that would be homebrew, and then homebrew core, I think. There we are. So that's the branch I just pushed. And then I can compare and pull request it. Commit those changes, push the branch to your fork, did that, and then I'm opening a PR. So this is from or to there from my version with that, and then so I always do a quick check when I do this to see how I answered it previously, because they have some guidelines on how they want things done, which they're perfectly entitled to do. And I normally have a caveat in here just to say what I actually did. So I did the first two because I have read the guidelines at one point in time. So I did that. Have you checked that there aren't any open pull requests? So unless someone on the chat room has got ahead of me and done this already, there shouldn't be. Have you built the formula locally? No, because I'm on a Windows machine. Is your testing running fine homebrew tests? No. Does your build pass brew audit? I'm going to assume that it does. Okay. If you want, I can test it on. Well, if you're in a position to do that, Tomas, let's do it, and then we can tick all the boxes. So if you could pull my PR branch or clone my fetch that PR branch and do those three things, that would be great. And that would just finalize that. That would be great, Tomas. I'll go back to the chat room because there are some chat messages in here. So the question was from Megacamp: could the homebrew formula use cake.core CLR? Matthias is saying no, it would use cake.tool in that case, but we'd rather have a cake.tool recipe. So I think what Matthias is saying there, we would have a separate formula specifically for cake.tool. But Megacamp is saying I run cake.core CLR all day without mono on Mac OS. I expected the homebrew formula to install cake.core CLR. But Matthias is pointing out it's historical reasons. Most using cake.exe will be using Xamarin, which comes with mono. I would recommend cake.tool for .NET Core. It's the recommended way for .NET tools, which wasn't available when cake.core CLR was created. Cake.tool is .NET Core 2.1. Cake.core CLR is .NET Core 2.0. And Megcamp saying, thank you, good to know. And that was Tomas saying he was going to go and check things for me. So could Homebrew install cake.cool? Cake.cool? Could Homebrew install cake.tool and drop the monodependency? I think we could do that, but I think we would have that as a separate formula. So we would have both cake and cake. Calling it cake.tool might be misleading. But in theory, I don't see why not. We're trusted only hash and file change and formula, which was tested in PR. Oh no, absolutely, Matthias. It's just that I've never been able to tick those boxes before. I just feel like I want to before the PR gets sent off. So I'm going to open a PR, and then we can move to the other thing. So let's wait for Tomas to come back with that, and then we'll carry on with the next part. Because the next part is, so let's close off some of these and start prepping for that. So as I mentioned, oh, he's cloning, perfect. The kind of the next step is updating some of the dependencies of Cake, or where Cake is immediately used. Oh no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, so what Matthias is saying there is we won't change the existing formula so that we won't break people that are currently already using it, but we may have a distinctly separate formula for providing that new way of running Cake. Okay, so let's go here and look at Cake build. Cake. So one of the repositories on the Cake organization on GitHub is the example repository. So the example repository is just that. It has a sample build.cake file with a build.ps1 and so on, and you can clone that and just immediately run it, and you'll have a Cake build up and running. But what you'll see here is in this tools.packages.config file is that we update this repository every time there's a new release of Cake, so that every time when someone clones that repository, they're running with the latest build of Cake. So what we want to do is to update the example repository with the latest version. So to do that, I'm going to switch to the example repository, which I have cloned locally here. So that's there. So I'm going to untick that actually while we're waiting. Move to the example repository and open the tools.packages.config file. So in here, in the tools.packages.config, we're pinning to a specific version of Cake, which is what we always recommend to do. I'm just going to bump that to be the currently available version, and then update the version number that we just released, which is that. Close off some of these things. Build everything to make sure it works. Yeah, Tomas, it really is. The Homebrew repo is quite big. I had that earlier today. It's quite big. There's a lot of history and a lot of formula in that one central repository. So it might have been quicker just to do like a limit of clone depths or whatever to reduce how much you're actually pulling down. So this one should actually work on my machine, he says. So if I do a build.ps1 here, having done that, let's see if that builds. Now hold on. What have you done there? What's Matthias linking to there? How did you sign in? See that? It's new. Docker. Okay, so but no, hold on now, Matthias. So what caused the creation of this? Because I haven't done anything in my release process to. So what have you just triggered to do those things? Because should that not be in the release process, or did that happen automatically? And if it did, we should probably add it into the steps to verify that those got pushed out correctly. Because I don't see any mention of Docker in the release notes, in the release process. There's a little bit of internal discussion happening, obviously, now between the Cake team here to see what's going on. I'm working on that CI. So it will be triggered automatically. So Matthias is saying, so it got triggered automatically. Okay, and that's fine. But I think in the process notes that we have here, I think we should add a check in the same way that we've got a check that the NuGet packages for all the cake dot whatever's got pushed to NuGet and it got pushed to Chocolatey. I think we should add in a check to say that those tags got added to Docker as well. Just Windows container left in CI to compile. Cool. Okay, perfect. And yes, I love the term automagically. I think it's great. Cool. So they're there. So they're there. So if you're a Docker fan and you want the latest cake bits in Docker, then they're already there, which is good. So that build was happening locally. So that build succeeded. So that's good. So I can go back and say that build worked, and I'm going to commit the changes to here. So copy, commit message, packages.config file. Change was simply to bump it to there, which is that. And I'm going to say that I did that. And I'm going to say yes to that. And then over here, I can then say git push upstream to say that I did that. Okay, so that's the changes to the example repository completed. And it's a similar thing for the resources repository. So if I go over to here and look at the resources repository, then this resource repository contains the artifacts that are downloaded as part of, what's that? What's Maurice said? Copy to clipboard. Let me see. Is this my favorite GIF of all time? I think it is. Yes, automagically. Indeed. And Matthias is saying, I'm rewriting the Docker build script to use cake.tool. Will speed things up and simplify things. Currently, it's a self-contained build, so no need for that. Sounds good to me. So the resources repository. The resources repository is used in a couple of places. So if you go to the cake documentation and you follow through some of the guides, then it will say fetch this file from here and this URL, this well-known URL. Those well-known URLs are essentially backed by this repository. And this resource repository is also used in things like the Visual Studio for Code extension, where we download the latest cake.config file, or we download the latest bootstrapper files. All of these things come from this repository. So in the same way that I updated the example.config, example repository to be pinned to the 33 release, I'm also going to update this packages.config file so that when someone does a fresh build of cake without having pinned to a specific package.config file, then this is the one that they're going to get immediately brought down to them. So I'm going to switch to that resources repository so I can start making those changes. So I'm going to switch to the resources repository and I'm going to check which branch I'm on. So I'm going to check out the develop branch. Check out develop. So I have moved to resources repository. I have switched to the develop branch and I'm going to open the packages.config file. Tomas saying it seemed to grab. Did you switch to my PR branch before you did that, Tomas? So running a brew install of cake will still, we haven't published anything yet. The questions that were open on the pull request Or have I done things along the lines of brew install build from source? Did you use that formula, the build from source formula? Or will that work actually? That might only work if no, that should have worked because you checked out my branch. Did you use the build from source flag? Actually, no, I haven't. No, yes, I have created the. So okay, you were on my branch. I used the flag. I don't know then. I've never actually done that step, so I can't speak to what actually gets installed. I don't know then. Did the other steps, did the audit pass? And did the brew test pass? Aside from it not installing the right version? I'll come back to that. I want to open the packages.config file. So that would be over here on resources. So over here, I'm going to bump this to 0.33.0. Save that. Look at the changes. Look at packages.config. Boom, boom. Update the cake version number, which I did. And then copy that commit message and paste that into here. Updated cake tool to use 33. Go ahead and save that. Yes. And I'm going to git push upstream on that. Two, three. Git checkout master. Git merge OFF from the develop branch. Git push upstream. Git push master. Develop. Push. Okay. Yeah, so that's that done. So the next thing is really, this is kind of where I thought we were going to get to, and then we're going to come to kind of a natural stop. The next thing that needs to happen is the creation of a blog post. Now, I'll walk through some of that, and then I'll probably stop because I need to make up some words basically to put into that blog post. But I'll show you how that what that process is and how we follow through with it. But there's no point in sitting watching me trying to put pen to paper, if you like, for a blog post. Which outputs. We'll quickly see what Tomas is saying, and then we'll just create the PR, I think. Run it with -d, which outputs user home taps homebrew core as repo. So it is like it ignores whatever folder I'm in. Okay, so that sounds like something specific to homebrew and how it's doing stuff. So yeah, I'm going to cut to the chase and just say that we haven't done those things, and I'm going to say ship it. So let's go ahead and go gadget. So that's the PR created. Merging is blocked because it needs CI builds to pass and all sorts of stuff. But at some point, hopefully, that will get merged in. And then when you do a brew install of cake, you will get the 0.33 version of that as well. So that's that part done. So I'm going to go back and my release notes, release process. I'm going to tick that box. And now we're talking about the website. So the website, like the other parts of Cake, is pinned to the latest version of Cake. So that again, we're testing our own infrastructure with the latest version of Cake, so we know that sooner rather than later that something's broken. So I need to change this. But at the same time, I also want to create a blog post. So what we do, if we go back up to cakebuild.net, then as part of every release, which you'll see here, is we will have a blog post for every release. So it'll go into detail about what happened in that release and what was included so it's a replication of the release notes that were published to GitHub, but also more importantly is this part for me is the big part, is that we list out everyone that's contributed to this release. It's really the Cake community that drives some of the releases that happen, so we like to give credit where credit is due every time we have some contributions from the outside the core Cake maintainers. So we normally do a brief introduction of what was included in that release, with if it's necessary, specific examples of how you can use that functionality, and then we will, like I say, we'll generate these links off to the people who contributed to the release, and then the final release notes. So I need to generate that blog post and update to the next version of Cake for the website itself, and create that. So the way that we do that is we have a secret repository. Shh! Don't tell anyone. Right? We have a secret repository on GitHub. We have a private repository. So I'm going to bring it up, but you can't tell anyone, right? You didn't see this. So we have a secrets repository that has secrets in it. And one of those things is a tool that we've created called Fetch Contributors. So it's a very simple console application that just simply goes off to GitHub, finds all the contributors between 2 milestones, and stubs out a blog post with all of that information in it. And that can be the basis of the PR for creating the blog post. So we have this tool that we use, okay, and that's what I'm going to use to do that just now. Ooh, I just got an email from chocolatey.org saying that something's happened. So let's see what's happening to Cake.portable. Let's just flip over to Cake.portable, see what's going on there. Cake.portable. Yeah, Kim, don't tell anyone. It's secret. Don't tell anyone. Is that what it was, Maurice? I thought that's what it might be. Let's just, now that I'm here, let's bring it up. So I got an email saying that the first part of the automated checks has succeeded. So it passed the automated validator, which means that the first step in the validation process has succeeded, meaning that there are no missing requirements in the package new spec file. There are some guidelines that we aren't adhering to. We should probably fix that. But it passed, so that's the main thing. So there's a 2-step process, there's a 3-step process for automated validation. 2-step process for automated validation, 1 step for human moderation that needs to happen for this package. But anyway, getting back to this. So this utility tool is what I'm going to use to stub out that blog post. So let's go here and look at the website repository. I'm going to git checkout -b a new branch called -b 0330 blog post from develop. Boom. Yeah, so I was aware that it's a trusted package, Maurice. I wasn't going to bring that up because it leads into a wider discussion of what a trusted package is. So that's why I omitted that part. But yes, it is a trusted package. So if I go here and look in the input folder and look in the blog, then in here we will see that it's just a flat list of folder structures, a flat list of files for all the releases, all the blog posts. So I need to create a new one, but I'm going to use that tool that I spoke about to do that for me. So if I open up a new one of these and I navigate to see GitHub, organizations, Cake, secrets, processes, fetch contributors, and this is the tool. So I've done that. And I'm away to create a blog post, and I can do that using this thing here. So if I take what the example is here, and I do that, then I'm interested in that. And from here, I need to go up a level. That's not going to work. Up a level. How many levels do I need to go up? 1, 2, 3, I think. And then down into website. And then, what was it? Just website and then input cd to input ls blog. Do absolute from previous command line. Meh. So the question from Megacamp there is, why no git aliases? Why no git aliases? What does that mean? Oh, I see what you mean. I'm not a fan of git aliases. I prefer to write all my git commands out fully, because then when I walk up to a machine that doesn't have my git profile set up, I don't have to depend on those aliases. Is how I tend to do it. But yeah, it's a good question. V0.30 from 1.32. So what I'm specifying here are the to and from version numbers. So in terms of fetching those contributors to this specific milestone, I'm going to look at the previous milestone and then find all the commits between it and the one that I've just created, which is 0.33, and it will give me a list of contributors from that. Yeah, so Matthias is putting me off running this command now. I think it's going to work. But do I need to give it a file path, or is it going to create a file path for me? Your example doesn't really. I'm going to give it a name. Slash, what's today's date? 2019 04 01. Oh, it'll create a file. All right, okay, sorry. I'm going to take that off again. I apologize. So 1, 2, 3, down in the website. 1, 2, 3. Right, let's run it. Okay. So I'm running. It's running. Could not find part of organization, cake, build, website, blog, input, blog. Oh, I knew about the blog as well. Look at that. How clever is Matthias? Let's try that. Nope. Oh, Megacamp. It is. Sorry. I didn't click who it was. Sorry, Enrico. I apologize. I didn't click onto the handle that you're using there. I do apologize. Welcome and thank you for joining. Directory not found. Organizations, cake build, website, blog, input. Where did blog come from? Oh, is that the problem? I put it in the wrong place. Input, blog. Let's try that. So that question about the git aliases makes sense now then, because I don't think I have any git aliases. In fact, I tend not to use any of them at all. So now over here, now we've got a new file. Now we've finally got a new file. And in this file, it has taken all of that information it's figured out all that information for us. So it has stubbed out the front matter that's needed for YAM, which is the static content generator that we use for Cake website. It's filled all that out based on who I am, the release notes, and things like that. It's stubbed out, blah, this is what's going to happen. So I need to put some information in here. And then it's also included our list of contributors. So for this contribution, we've got quite a few contributions. The reason that this is happening here is that if someone hasn't set up their GitHub profile correctly and linked the email address that they have added to the Git commit into their GitHub profile, it can't link the two things together. So we end up with some entries like this where we can't link to a GitHub profile. So that's happened on at least a couple of those things there, which is there's quite a few of them actually. So that's more than normal. So there's 5 of those that don't have any GitHub profiles associated with them, which is unfortunate because we do like to give credit where credit's due. But then it's also pulled out the release notes as part of. So this goes back to what Kim was talking about before. If he's still around, he is. Kim was speaking about using essentially Git Release Manager to pull the release notes out as part of the process for updating the release notes.md. That's obviously something that we can do because we're doing this here, but the format of that potentially needs to slightly change sometimes. And yeah, there's a huge list of people in this release to mass, so it's always nice to see lots of external contributions into the site, so which is really good. So that's done. So I'm on a branch. So in theory, I'm just going to put this out there. So this is draft blog post for 0.33.0 release. Okay, so so I've spoken about this before on the stream, but I'm using, from my Mac, I am using Synergy to connect to a Windows machine, which is what I'm using to do the actual stream. So every so often, Synergy goes in a little bit of a hairy fit, to put it kindly, and it decides that if I hit delete once, it wants to delete a bunch of times. Now Manfred's told me that that's because I'm using a Wi-Fi connection, and Synergy gets a little bit messed up sometimes over a Wi-Fi connection, and I should be using a hardwired connection, but I haven't done that part yet. Draft blog post for 0.13.0 release. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I am going to push that up to, not from that one, it would be from this one. So I think I've got my remotes here. Yeah, so git push origin, because I want this to be a PR. Blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't be doing that in front of Enrico. I should have another way of doing that, I know. But I always just push it and then grab what it gives me back. Bad. So if I now go over to the website, I should have that ready for. I'm sharing this because what we do as part of the release process is we do a sanity check of the blog post before we put it out. So although I haven't actually added anything other than the auto-generated content, I want to put it up there so that we can start reviewing it and start getting some input on that. So that's coming from mine, blah, 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 create a blog post. So I can create a branch, create a blog post file, which it did. I did that. Oh, I didn't bump the version number, or did I? Let's go back to here. This is why we have a process. So tools, I didn't, so that's good. So let's move this over here, save that, and have a separate commit, which is there. So the separate commit is that one. We're going to change that to 33, which we will do there, and we'll just push that commit up as well. Git push origin. Did that, and did that. Push branch and submit pull request. Okay, so what's left is really to finalize that blog post. So that involves me that involves me putting some words into that blog post and filling it out with some examples and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to have you, people who have followed along so far, follow me along and try and type in coherent English for that blog post. So I think that's kind of a natural stopping point. Maybe what we should do is talk through what's left in the release process. So if we go back to here and let's just have a look through cake build, and then where processes is the name of the repository. Processes. We'll see where we've got to. So in our issues in here, we've now done 76 of the 108, so we're getting close. So what's left? So I'm down here at... Oh, I did that one too. I must have missed that one. So I'm at a point of we need to finalize that pull request, and then that will then get the website updated with the blog post, and then we can start sending people out to that. So once that part's done, we can then start announcing the final release. So we'll then, once we then we could do some of these, I guess. The final part of the process where we are announcing to a wider audience, we're typically submitting the link to the blog post, because that's really where we're sending people to see all the information. So I can't do these final ones, which is to submit to on.net, submit to Reddit, submit to LinkedIn, submit to Medium, because all of those things require that blog post to exist. So obviously I can't do those ones. What I could do though is announce to here, because these ones don't require that blog post. So I grab this and go into the blah 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 blah. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So if we go over to... Right. Okay, so I was having a thought process there in terms of why it's telling me to go to the cake contrib Gitter room and not the cake Gitter room. But as part of our build process, on a successful build of the tagged release to GitHub, we've already sent a message into the cake Gitter room. Although I notice it's using the cake contrib bot account rather than cake build bot. That's probably something we should change. Yes, you're absolutely right, Kim. It is done by the bot, so it's already there. But it's using the wrong account. We should probably check that. But if I go to cake contrib, I can post this one. So cake contrib is here. And I'm going to change that to a 3. Boom. So I can tick that one off. Cake contrib Slack team, which is over here. Cake contrib Slack team wants this message. Oops. Copy, copy, copy. Paste. Change that to a 3. Boom. So I've done that one. And like I said, the rest of them are dependent on that blog post being finished. But once that blog post is there, it's a short step to do these ones. And then at that point, I might be able to go and have a drink. But because I didn't finish the process, then I can't have a drink just now. So that's unfortunate. Is that just my accent, Enrico? Is that what it is? I've just realised that Gitter room, it does a little bit, I suppose. It does. There's none of that shenanigans happening here right now. But what can I say? Okay, so that is that then. So there's lots, like I say, there's lots of steps in our release process. I do like the fact that it's documented, and anyone in the cake team could follow this without too much hassle. There's obviously some steps in there that can be automated, I think, as I mentioned, that the appearance of the GitHub Actions will allow us to do some of that automation, because some of these steps wouldn't ever end up in the core CI build. They're the wrong place for those things to happen, in my opinion. But the GitHub Actions, which is kind of, in my mind, it's kind of supplemental to a CI process when you can trigger things based on a milestone being published, or a pull request being opened, or because of those different entry points for those actions happening. I think they're an ideal situation, an ideal place for some of these things to take place. So what I think we need to do as part of the Cake team is to review these steps and see what needs to be done. We've already highlighted a couple of things that need to be added to this process based on the work that Matthias is doing with the Docker images, just a sanity check to make sure that the release process has worked for that. But again, those are things that can be brought into things like our Slack channel. So we could have an automated message go into the Slack channels when each of those things happen, and it's sanity checked that all of those things exist. So there's lots of things that can happen. But the fact that we have them all documented, and the fact that we use this strategy, which is to tick them off as we're going, means that if I had to step away to see the kids or do something, then in theory, one of the other Cake team members could pick up where I left off and continue that process without too much handover having to happen, because the process is here ready to be used. So I'll quick read through the chat messages to see if there's anything else in here. So Rico saying no apologies needed, so I'm assuming that was in reference to my non-use of Git aliases. And Tomas was highlighting the fact that we've got a big list of contributors in this release, which we do. It was a big release with lots of things in it, so we're happy to have everyone on board doing that. And Kim was saying he's still here when I asked him about that. Enrico saying thank you for taking the time to share this. It's not a problem at all. Matthias is saying this uses OctoKit. So that was the generation of the release notes for the blog post. It's currently using OctoKit. Okay, so under the hood, that's all Git Release Manager is doing as well. So we might be able to bring those in parity. We could probably move the tool to processes repo. No magic or secrets in that one. Yeah, you're probably right. So what Matthias is saying there is currently this fetch contributors is in our secrets repository. Don't tell anyone about it. Shh. But there is nothing secret in there. It's kind of fixed onto our process. So yeah, adding it into the processes repo probably makes sense so that other people could take a look at that. We could definitely do that. Kim saying Wi-Fi and UDP, never a good combination. So you see, you say that, but on the whole, it stands up quite well. It's just every so often something goes awry, and it's typically the delete key, and it just deletes a series of characters in a oneer. So yeah. I need to do something about that. Crossover cable, yes, probably. Takes 10 minutes to do the build. I think Matthias is talking about there the build time for the website because of the way it works. It can take a while for the actual website build to go up. And Kim was talking about the bot. That's fine. That was Enrico's comment about get a room. Issue is that with moderation it'll take a while from successful build to release NuGet package. We'll pull probably NuGet API in future to post tweet. Okay, I see what you're saying. So that was in. So what Matthias is saying there in the chat room was in terms of knowing when to tweet when something happens, we might be able to pull the NuGet API to know exactly when it's released, to then be able to, because one of the problems that we have just now is when the build succeeds, it sends a message to the Gitter room to say that package is available. The problem is that because of the indexing that happens and the moderation that happens, we're creating a link that doesn't actually exist yet, so they'll get a 404. So yes, I think ideally we would have some other magic in there that only sends that link out when it's known to actually exist. So that's definitely something that needs to happen. Maurice is doing a throwback to the bot that's currently used in Chocolatey. We have a bot called Daisy that does some work for us, and he's saying that Daisy should be able to build 030. That would be ideal. I mean, rather than this 108 step, if we could literally from our Slack channel say build 03034, I think that would be pretty cool. And Tomas is saying, I'm using Synergy at work, disconnects all the time. Oh, don't tell me that, Tomas. Oh, I had high hopes for if I were to sit and do the work and run a cable that it was all going to be glorious after that, but it sounds like that's not going to be the case. I might just stick with what I've got then. And Twitfool is that a beer? It is. I can't quite have that. I can't claim that yet because I haven't ticked all the boxes. So I can't do this last part until I've done all the other ones. So maybe tomorrow morning or tomorrow lunchtime, I might be able to have a drink. Oh, hey, that's Dwayne. It's Dwayne as well in the chat room. Hi, Dwayne. How are you doing? I've had great success with Synergy, but haven't used it for a while as I'm back down to one system. And you were on a wired connection. Okay. So I've got at least 2 or 3 votes for doing the wired and only 1 for not. So I might do it then. I might do it. How was your Comic-Con, by the way, Dwayne? It looked immense. I saw some of the pictures that you were tweeting about it. I've never been to one. I would love to go to one, I think, at some point. But unlike your significant other, my one would not be interested at all in attending that. So I would be going alone, I think. But anyway, I think that is where I will draw it to a close. So I appreciate everyone sticking with me through this. I hope it's been of use. Like I say, there's no secrets in terms of what the cake release process is. We would love feedback on things that can be done better, things that can be streamlined. So feel free to jump into issues on the main Git repository, or even here in the process repository if you've got any comments on what we do and how we do it. I would love to hear from that. As I mentioned at the start, I'm not planning a stream for this Friday because I will be away on a short vacation with the family, and as a result I won't be here next Monday either, but something will be streamed about on Friday the 12th during my lunch hour. There'll be a short stream on something yet to be defined, but definitely this is probably the best place to find out information about upcoming streams. If there's something that you would like to discuss, then feel free to jump in and add an issue up in here for suggestions on what will be covered in the streams. You two are funny. So for those that don't know, we have in the Chocolatey GitHub room and in the Cake GitHub room, we have a HuBot instance that has the Karma plugin. So if you do a + after a string, then that string, in this case at get13, would get some Karma points. Now, obviously, Chocobot doesn't run in this chat room. It could, in theory. Maybe that's a topic for a stream. I don't know. I know that the likes of Jeff Fritz has lots of things that he has in his chat room in terms of doing moderation and all that sort of stuff. I haven't got any of that in this thing yet. Although I will say one other thing that I haven't mentioned yet. Before I went to MVP Summit, I got an email from Twitch inviting me to become a Twitch affiliate. I'm not exactly sure what that entails, but I think I'm going to do it, and I'm going to become a Twitch affiliate. I don't know what I need to do and what that allows me to give out or to receive back. I have no idea. But I think I'm going to go and fill in the forms, and I'm going to become a Twitch affiliate, and that might open up some potential for doing some other things, likes of the chatbots and things like that within here. So definitely something to take a look at. If anyone knows anything about that more than I do, I would love to hear from you. So Enrico's saying, very interesting stuff. Not a problem at all, Enrico. I hope your NDC session goes well on Cake. If you've got any questions, it's not even a session, it's an entire workshop. I would have loved to have got to that, but I can't make it. So if you're going to NDC Oslo this year, make sure that you check out Enrico's workshop on Cake. If you've got any questions ahead of that, Enrico, feel free to reach out to myself or anyone else in the team. We'll definitely help you with any questions that you might have. The workshops, remind me, the workshops aren't recorded, are they? Or they certainly weren't the last time I was at NDC. So would love to hear the feedback that you might get from that and let us know if there's anything that we can do to make it better. Next one. Cool. Thank you, Gary. Time to go. Indeed. Tomas, I'm going to go to my bed too. Puts qualified streamers one step closer towards the dream of making their living from their passions. Oh, that sounds good, Maurice. I love it. That's what I'm on my road to. Then you get enough subscribers, you get X amount of custom emotes to use. Oh, custom emotes. That would be cool. I think we should. Can I count on everyone here to subscribe to get some custom emotes? Anyway, right, I'm gonna draw this to a close. Thank you all for attending, and I will see some of you, all of you, none of you maybe, on Friday. Next, not this Friday, next Friday, and we'll see where we go from there. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you later.